Do I still have the ostrich Doradongo and that I handmade for the excrement polishing episode? Yes, I do. All right, I'll be right back. 10 minutes. Here we go. Here is the first Doradongo I made, and this is simply dirt and elbow grease. And then this is the one that I made out of ostrich poop. Yeah, of course I kept these. These are two of my favorite objects I made on MythBusters. The ostrich poop still has a tiny tinge of grass. And I also still have many of the poops that we collected from the San Francisco Zoo. Of the poops, I will tell you that warthog poop is the most stressed out poop in the animal kingdom. Warthogs, man, their poop is just like, it's all stress with a warthog. Seriously. When MythBusters, when we filmed in South Africa for the last Shark Week episode that we did, we were filming with those great whites that breach out of the water on False Bay in Simonstown on the southern tip of Africa. At the end of that, my wife and I and Alice Dallow, our producer, director, we took a few days to go do a safari at an amazing wildlife park about 2 hours flight east of Simonstown called Shamwari. Yeah, the Shamwari Reserve. And life-changing to do that safari. It was really, really beautiful. We saw some amazing things. It's until you see how well elephants can hide 20 feet away from you, like you don't understand anything. It's totally amazing. And seeing giraffes in person is like looking at the aliens from Arrival. Like giraffes just don't look like they should work. But I was telling that story for a reason. Warthogs. Yes, it was warthogs. So we stay in Shamwari has these accommodations that are jaw-dropping, beautiful rooms with 4-poster beds, and the food was incredible. And our room had these big, beautiful windows out to this little yard, which was our yard, and the grass was being mowed by a family of warthogs. So like we get into the hotel room and we look, and there's warthogs like, and we go, I'm like, honey, look, it's warthogs. They're mowing our grass. And she looks over, and just the turning of her head, and they scattered like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Warthogs are stressed out animals, man. And then like we'd stay quiet and they'd come on back, and but if we moved too much, they'd scatter. So yeah, I have kept a lot of my favorite props from the show. But yeah, I'm glad you asked about these because these are two of my all-time favorites. If you don't know about Doradongo, Dorodongo, it is a Japanese pastime of making shiny mud balls using a process which involves mud and powder and your refrigerator and a plastic bag. And that's it. And after a couple of days of labor, you can end up with something like this. And it is super satisfying. And before you say it, yes, I already know about the polished aluminum foil balls, and I have not yet made one. But that is definitely something that's on my list to do as a one-day build because I want to try it out. This is apparently a new kind of Doradongo style method in which you take a whole bunch of tinfoil and with a hammer and a bunch of elbow grease and some polish and some more elbow grease and some time, you make a perfectly shiny chrome ball made out of tinfoil. Oh, I totally will make one of those. Okay, let's see here. Lee Marsh, hi Lee, good to see you again, says, can you discuss your journey into being a creative problem solver under the pressures of TV deadlines? How much has the experience helped your professional life since? That's a really good question. There's a lot of meat in there to discuss because someone asked me in an interview recently, what is it that draws people to film work? And I'm going to conflate now film, commercial, and television. The production of them is all pretty similar from the standpoint of just being a worker bee. And they said, what kind of person does film attract? And it attracts people who like solving problems under constantly shifting parameters. That's what film work is about. It's about problem solving, but the parameters are changing constantly, and you are always having to adjust the parameters of what you're going to deliver based on the parameters of what's standing in your way. You might have to do this prop, which on any other day would only take you 10 minutes, but it's 104 degrees and the air conditioning's out, and now this thing is too greasy because it's too warm, or your paint won't dry because it's too humid because it's raining outside. These are the kind of problems you run into constantly when working in film. And you either love the fact that those parameters are changing all the time, or you hate it. There's not a lot of in between. So I submit that a lot of people work in film for a day or the rest of their lives. But there's not a lot of like, I spent 2 months doing it and I didn't like it. I have seen people step onto a set and be like, dude, is this what this is? I can't do this. This is way too stressful. But I'm here to tell you that one of the early times I was on set, and I told this story in the book I wrote last year. Jamie had built this rig, spent 2 days building this rig for this Toys R Us commercial, and the rig failed. And it failed. We had to do like 6 commercials in 2 days, or I can't even remember the number breakdown, but we had to do a lot in a little bit of time, that's commercial production work. And the rig wasn't going to work for the commercial. And instead of getting upset about it, he didn't get upset about it. I watched Jamie be like, my rig doesn't work. All right. Then he met with the director. I think it was my friend Carl. And he said, the rig doesn't work. Here are the options. I can come up with a plan B that'll take 2 hours. I can come up with a plan B that we could shoot tomorrow. The pros and cons of each are this and that. Take your pick. And there was something about the simplicity of that unemotional approach to what was a disaster. Like, Jamie's company had been hired to build this thing for a commercial, and now the thing he built and got approved and was ready to shoot failed. So on one level, you could just start sweating bullets and getting all upset and getting emotionally activated. But I watched the opposite happen. I watched him say, well, okay, we still have to get a commercial in the can, so here's how I can contribute to that. And I just remember watching that and being like, I love this industry. That is a great mindset. And consequently, I have always loved being on a set. I've always loved and I've been under some of the most egregious conditions, working 25-hour days, multiple days in a week, working on a motion control stage for a Star Wars movie, man. Those 10 and 12-hour days after several months, those can feel like they're ruining your life, because they kind of are. And yet, there's a camaraderie of that problem solving that I really love. So that's the preamble to your question about what it was like to work on MythBusters. One of the things that both Jamie and I took pride in as makers and as professionals in our industry is that we were fast. Each of us were quick at the problems we were quick at solving the problems we liked to solve. And then we were asked to solve them even quicker on MythBusters, and even quicker than that, because we had to stop constantly to do things for camera, in addition to doing them to get the job done. And then we had to stop doing the thing for camera that we would normally just be getting done for the job done in order to also talk about it on camera. So it was like this extra slowdown. So the biggest difficulty on MythBusters was building momentum in a build, because you kept on having to stop. So how do we do it? The main way we got through it was just by being really realistic with each other. And if builds took longer than they should have, well, that became part of the narrative. But I don't think that making MythBusters radically altered the way I like solving problems under pressure. I think it just was able to take advantage of the fact that I had been doing that professionally already for like 10 or 15 years and still really enjoyed doing that. What MythBusters changed for me, and because a couple of your questions have led towards this, what it really changed for me, well, it changed me as a maker fundamentally. And understand, like, again, both Jamie and I had worked for multiple different effects companies. And like, I'd come from ILM, man. And one of the coolest things about working at ILM was that shortly after starting to work there, I never again had to show my resume to people because they'd be like, oh, you work at ILM? Sure. Where do we send the check? That was awesome. So I showed up on the MythBusters set thinking, you know, I'm hot stuff. I know how to do my thing. And Jamie and I, in the last season, at one point, we were sitting in a car waiting for a shot, and we were talking about, like, man, we were such babies when this show began. Like, we thought we had some skills, but now with the vantage point of looking back 14 years, we didn't know anything. We knew how to make small objects in front of us. We knew how to do stuff at this workbench, but we didn't know how to pick up cars and drop them in things. We didn't know how to sink boats and raise them again. We didn't know how to get permits to blow crap up. All of that stuff was learned on the job.